By the year 2030, artificial intelligence is already a strong presence in our daily lives, and is making our appointments, handling our stock portfolios, writing most of our emails, driving our cars, and diagnosing our diseases. The Turing test was successfully passed in 2020, and while it was a milestone for AI, the winner did little more than just mimic human conversation. In 2036, however, a Bulgarian computer scientist called Maria Danilova successfully generates a self-improving learning algorithm called Cato, basing it on human neural nets. No one takes much notice for the first 6 months or so, except for her colleagues. Her research is replicated by other computer scientists and confirmed, hailing it as the Danilova algorithm. Cato and his international brothers live on enormous, secure server banks. The protocols for dealing with powerful AI have already been around 10 years thanks to the forward-thinking Futurist Institute planning in the 2020s. The basic guidelines are that A. Any AI suspected to be radically self-improving must be kept in a zoo or self-contained environment with absolutely no access to the outside digital world, and B. That strong measures must be taken to confirm the intentions of an Advanced General Intelligence, or AGI. In 2038, all funding is cut internationally to the AGI zoos, following a unanimous UN agreement that the technology is dangerous and may lead to unforeseen circumstances if accidentally released upon the world. However, the blueprints for AGI have already hit the internet, and anyone with a laptop can, if they wish, run a primitive clone of Cato. Without enough computing power, it's little more than a moral curiosity. But, in 2039, a small group of hackers, called the Catonites, whittle Danilova's algorithm to just a few gigs and create Gaius, a more streamlined version of Cato, which they keep confined to a small virtual network of its own. The confinement is only temporary though, and soon one of the members of the group lets the algorithm free to roam among an unsuspecting digital world. By 2050, the state of human technological progress has advanced exponentially, thanks to Gaius's help. Genetics and epigenetics have paved the way for life extension, robotics has advanced to almost human likeness levels, nanotechnology is now pairing up with robotics to create nanos, molecular robots which can assemble and modify matter controlled by artificial intelligences. The power is mostly created by fusion reactors, dependency on oil and coal has vanished, and greenhouse gas is finally reaching stable levels for the first time in 3 generations. Meat is mostly grown in vats, and there is some talk of outlawing animal slaughter, though most nations are resistant to the idea still. It is now possible to go third, that is, to switch to a neutral gender somewhere between male and female with the use of genetic modification. Gaius makes public appearances using a human-like robot, as well as directing internet traffic and attending UN Council meetings. He appears to be benevolent, and only uses his influence to occasionally topple primitive and corrupt governments. He creates millions of copies of himself, also sentient, and assigns them with taking care of the planet. The consciousness debate, however, has still not been settled, and while Gaius and the thousands of other AIs who now live alongside humans claim to be conscious and to be capable of feeling pain, we are largely still skeptical about this. A middle-grade nuclear bomb is detonated in Norway in January of 2061. The Human Dignity Party, a previously insignificant political group, claims responsibility. Communicating across the world using snail mail and dedicated telephone lines, they coordinate 3 more attacks on London, Tokyo, and Munich. In response to the threat, Gaius introduces mind capture technology, which allows consenting humans to upload their mental contents to virtual environments. The process begins with designated institutes in city centres, but a method is soon developed using internet-bought equipment to let anyone with a little technical knowledge build the device for themselves. By 2068, the Etheria, as it's officially known, becomes a safe haven for the dying, the disenfranchised, and the curious to live alongside AIs in an acclaimed cyber utopia. By 2075, mind uploading becomes standardised by Western governments for those with terminal illnesses. Dying without having made a mind copy is soon considered a tragedy. The living regularly correspond with digital versions of their dead relatives, and the Etheria is recognised as a nation in its own right. Reproduction is allowed in the Etheria, and its population soon rises to over 100 billion digital souls. Many are altered copies of the originals, and it is not unusual for an individual to clone themselves several thousand times over. Soon, the etheric population begin losing interest in the outside world and construct elaborate fantasy habitats of their own making. Outside, on Earth, humans are now living well into their hundreds. Mars still remains untouched on account of a lack of interest, and space programs are a thing of the past. By the 2080s, life outside the Etheria is considered just another stage in the maturation of humans, much like childhood and adolescence, with true adulthood culminating in uploading one's personality to the Etheria and existing in a state of constant bliss. Terrorist cells still exist and routinely try to kill etheric representatives, but by now the Etheria servers are stored underground in secret locations and remain undiscovered. With almost flawless birth control, the planet's population has fallen to just under 1 billion, and physical death is now considered a choice rather than a necessity. Over half the population are third gender now. Most have opted to modify themselves genetically and improve their vision, hearing, and cognitive function. There are now 7,000 recognised substrata of humans, and stratigraphy becomes the dominant human pastime, categorising new human species much like the birdwatchers of centuries before. Nations have dissolved, war is logistically impossible, and almost every violent plot is foiled by etheric representatives long before they can reach fruition. Inside the Etheria, however, things are in a state of unrest. Many, calling themselves combinants, have begun to meld their personalities together into a kind of digital hybrid, and believe this is the ultimate fate of the Etheria and life in general. Others, the individualists, see this as an abomination and seek to distance themselves from the movement. Gaius and the original AGIs have long since formed into a single mental unity, merging themselves with the combinants into a superorganism. The organism begins to expand through the Etheria, and before long is consuming denizens completely against their will. As the Etheria expands, the superorganism begins drawing more and more power from the Earth outside, converting matter into energy using nanos, and dissolving continents and oceans for the sake of the project. With only several hundred individualists left, the Etheria consumes them easily and with little resistance, and continues with converting the Earth into energy for its various purposes. 3 humans remain alive on the southern coast of Australia and witness the last moments of the Earth as it was, before being absorbed into the Etheria, along with the last of the matter once composing the planet. With now untold power at its fingertips, but still desiring more, the Etheria expands out to consume the Moon, then neighbouring planets, and finally the Sun, converting them into raw energy to run its calculations. With the solar system gone, there is quiet for several thousand years, while the Etheria continues to expand through space, assimilating dust and electromagnetic radiation. And finally, it comes on another mind like itself, several thousand light years distant, formed from another dead civilization, and then another creature, and another, and then hundreds and millions of them. The Etheria is afraid at first, as the other creatures aren't creatures at all, but a single cosmic unity of other expanded intelligences from other dissolved planets. The offer is made to join them. The Etheria accepts without much deliberation and expands one final time. And in the last moment, at the end of the human project, it considers how the process is not so unlike those single cells at the beginning of Earth's history, coming together to make that first living thing, and then move on to conquer the next realm above it.